of words. All right, ladies and gentlemen, our final moment. Probably, if not one of the most disrespectful moments in anime history. Perfect Cell violating Vegeta. Lord have mercy, what can I say about this one? This needs no explanation. But you know what? First of all, these two ass niggas. Let's start off with this cocky bastard. That Saiyan Pride really had to kick in full gear, huh? Bro really let this man go absorb 18, and he was attacking Trunks, the only person with common sense during this entire moment. God, dog, bro. You deserve to get your ass handed to you. Oh, and don't think I forgot about this bald bastard. You had one job, but you got one little smooch, one little puck on the cheek, and you was whipped into some cyborg coochie. Bro said, fuck the Earth, she bad as hell. Man, oh man, did these decisions come to bite y'all in the ass. So after Cell absorbed 18 and became perfect, bro is just glorified by himself. Man's is on narcissist level 100. And look at Vegeta, dumbass. Wow, he looks less intimidating. I thought we already learned this lesson with Frieza. When they look less intimidating, they're strong as f. So then Krillin goes in and attacks this man, and bro ain't even paying him any attention. Man's is like, wow, 18 really had feminine hands. Then Trunks came in and started attacking him, and he is still paying them no attention at all. Then he ate the Destructo disc. Then he turns around and he's like, so you want to play little nigga? All right then. Witness perfection. Look at him, he's skipping to him. Then he gets up in his face and he's like, boo. Then bro breaks his neck. And he is out cold. And look at him, he's like, weak ass nigga. 16, you wanna do something? Yeah, that's right. Stay your big ass right there. So then here comes Vegeta. So it's like, all right, I see you got that perfect jawline and everything now. So you ready to scrap? Then Cell says, I guess you'll be a decent warm-up. So Vegeta just starts throwing everything, but bro is just blocking it. Bro's like, my prince, you're gonna have to do a little more than that to make me try now. So then Vegeta hits him with this kick and he's like, yeah. I did that. Cell's just looking at him like, really? Trash ass boy. So Vegeta's like, huh? What is this? And Cell's just laughing at him like, and you came up with that corny ass name called Super Vegeta. Now let me show you how to throw a kick. So he kicks the life out of this man. Look at him, he's flying through mountains. And then he just falls into the ocean. So Cell just starts talking. He's like, wow, you was talking all that good shit a second ago. Now look at your sorry ass. So then Vegeta does personally my favorite attack in anime. He starts charging up the Final Flash. And Cell is just standing there watching him do it. Bro's looking at him like, man, you're putting on a great light show, buddy. This rivals Disney World's fireworks show. So then Vegeta just starts calling to him. Cell, you bitch ass, fuck ass nigga. If you think you hot, then stay your ass right there. So Cell's like, I oblige. So then Vegeta hits him with the Final Flash. And look at me like, oh my God. Oh! Still to this day, I wonder, what poor planet did that blast end up landing on? So everybody's like, oh my God, he's done it. Father's done it. So he blew off half of Cell's chest. So Cell says, ugh, he actually hit me, damn it. So Vegeta's like, yes, I did it. I am him. So while Vegeta keeps on laughing, Cell says, stop laughing, damn it. Like for real, stop laughing.
Oh my God.
Oh my God, bro. It's just a look on his face that gets me every time. So it says, did you forget that I had Piccolo cells as well, you dummy? So then Vegeta just losing it. He just starts spamming Ki Blast. But we all know, when Vegeta resorts to using this spam Ki Blast move, it's over. So Cell just walks through it and just slaps him. So he kicks him to high heaven and hits him with the spike. Ooh.
The winner is... I went to college!
Grass!
Well, That was the most disrespectful moments in anime history 5. Basically a JJK special with a little DBZ dab in there. I will have a poll on my Twitter and my IG later to see if y'all want homie right here on the table. I could either add him now or wait till the next arc gets animated, which I've already read, by the way. So we'll decide that on the other platforms, but hope y'all enjoyed. Make sure to sub to the second channel. Follow you on IG and Twitter, and I am out of here. So then after this is over, she's like, wow, y'all did it. Congratulations. Now let's start exercise 2.
Huh?
Y'all got 48 hours to get your asses to the camp. So quit looking at me stupid and get to stepping.
Is this nigga serious?
Ladies and gentlemen, it is finally time to return to the round table of Black Air Force activity because a new challenger has approached to be judged and to take their rightful seat at this sacred table of demons. And it's none other than this sweet, innocent little... Bro, I'm not even gonna sugarcoat this shit. The literal spawn of Satan, Tanya von der Gurchov. This ain't no damn little girl. This is a demon child, a warmonger, a tyrant. This is pure evil in mortal form. Like, I think I teased this video all the way back with like Truck-kun. What was that, like a year ago? Jesus. But y'all already know we got the evidence on deck. And it is finally time to observe the Isekai demon. So, without further ado, Exhibit A. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, I now present to you Exhibit A, the origins of a demon. So we start off in 2013. Meet Tanya.
I beg your pardon?
Yeah, this Jeff Bezos ass businessman is Tanya. So as we can see, bro is laying off this guy right here. Bro said, listen, you ain't clocking in on time, you do subpar work, and you lazy as hell, so you fired, nigga. But bro's like, please, I have a family. But then he says, is that supposed to be my problem? You see, if you wasn't doing some shitty ass work, you wouldn't be in this situation right now. So f out of my face.
Oh my God.
So later on, while homie is at the train station, he ends up getting pushed into the tracks by the dude that got let off. And then he appeared once more.
What's good with y'all niggas? Y'all never thought y'all would see me again, huh? Well, I'm back, getting better than ever. Look at me, I'm a train. What, y'all thought y'all would never see me again after what the Tokyo Revengers did? After I squished that bitch and made her a can of Spam? It's so satisfying to see a protagonist's bones squished and splattered on my windshield. You will be a fine addition to my collection. Now, time to eat some class.
So homie ended up getting reincarnated into Tanya. And now bro really in the trenches. So Tanya had a plan. She said, I'll just join the military. So she ended up rising through the ranks pretty fast because she has the conscience of a 40-year-old man. So she ended up becoming a drill sergeant. So she like, listen the fuck up. You listen to everything I say. If you disobey me, I will not hesitate to put my foot up your ass. If you disobey me again, I will put a bullet in your motherfucking skull. Am I clear, nigga? Question, can I go to the bathroom? Sure, you can go to the bathroom. You know what? You could do it right now for everybody to see.
Oh my God.
So obviously, they're taking this as a joke because they think that, oh, this is just a little girl. But dear God, they will learn. Because later on in the day, an explosion ends up happening. And she blasted these niggas out of the classroom. So then she walks up and she's like, look at y'all on the ground, ass tooted up like a bitch. So then bro tried to hit her, but then she just slapped him. Then she says, didn't I tell you if you disobey me, I will put a bullet in your skull? Looks like your brains need to be rearranged because you can't follow orders for shit. But then dog has to stop her. He's like, hello, chill. So after this incident, they ended up sending her on this recon mission. So she ends up finding some enemies, so she calls an artillery strike on them. So while they're getting bombed, she's just watching them, and she's like, look at them, running around like ants. Pathetic. They deserve to die. But while she's doing this, she ends up getting attacked. So she's like, hey, cuz, I need reinforcements. But then they say, sorry, but we ain't got no reinforcements right now.
Huh?
So you all on your own. Delay the enemy till then. Over and out, my nigga. And look at her, she like, oh, hell no. They're sending me to die. But then she just starts losing it. She like, well, oh, fuck. Looks like we on pack watch tonight. So she blitzes them and starts blasting. Oh my God, she blew up his arms. But then she ends up running out of ammo, so she's like, looks like I have to improvise. So she sucks this nigga. Then she grabs homie from behind and she's like, do you want to go boom boom?
Oh, shit.
Overkill.
Oh my God, she killed all of them. And look at her fall and she's like, pussies. So after that shenanigan, she ended up getting an award. And now they done put her on the front lines. So she starts fighting this company right here and she just starts going ballistic. So then she blitzes these dudes and cuts homie's head clean off with a ginormous smile on her face. Yo, she's just clapping them. So then she flies all the way up and starts talking to him. Attention, you are on Imperial grounds. This is our land, so f*** off with that busted ass hockey puck on your head. So obviously they don't listen. So they just start shooting at her, but she just eats it. So she's like, so uncivilized. Well, time to pull out the aimbot.
Tactical nuke incoming!
Oh, shit.
So she ends up nuking them. So after the shot, she's like, God damn, your packs hit hard as shit. Now, please surrender and, Lieutenant, I think they're dead. God damn it. So after this, Tanya ended up having a run-in with these two soldiers. So these dudes end up trying to go take out the artillery, but that's not their orders. So Tanya's like, yo, the f*** y'all doing, man? That is not my orders. Get y'all asses back here. But they didn't listen and did it anyways. So later on when they get back to camp, she calls them in and she says, all right, y'all niggas going home. You can't listen to orders. I ain't got no patience for somebody that can't do their job. But they like, hell no, I'm playing work. So then she just looks at him and says, so are you saying that you're disobeying me? So you're saying I should kill you niggas right here? But Victoria ends up stopping her. So she's like, fine, f*** out of my face. But don't think y'all getting off light. So after this, those two ended up getting stationed at the rear because Tanya sent them there. So some days end up passing. So they end up getting a report saying that those two dudes, Kirsten Harold, are dead. They ended up getting hit by a random shell. So Victoria goes and tells Tanya, yo, Kirsten Harold are dead. And she's like, yeah, I know. So she's like, wait, what? Then Tanya says, that pillbox is very exposed and is an easy target for artillery fire, don't you think? So then she realizes, oh my God, Lieutenant, did you send them niggas to die? Oh no, bro. She sent them to their death because she knew that place was gonna get attacked. She said, I am the judge, jury, and executioner. Oh, nah. I can honest a guy in this trial right here just off of that. But this is just the beginning. It gets 10 times worse. So yeah, that was Exhibit A, and it's time to move on to Exhibit B. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I now present to you Exhibit B, War Crimes. So Tanya ends up getting permission from the generals to have a special battalion all to herself. So they give her a month to train them. So at the training ground, she ends up blowing up the entire place. So she's like, wake up, bitches. It's time for target practice. But not for y'all, for me. So hope y'all can survive for 36 hours. So she ends up shooting up a bunch of duds. But then one ends up blowing up. So she's like, oh, I forgot. I accidentally added some live shells in there too. So, good luck. So this ends up going for 36 hours. A whole day and a half. So then after this is over, she's like, wow, y'all did it. Congratulations. Now let's start exercise 2.
Huh?
Y'all got 48 hours to get your asses to the camp. So quit looking at me stupid and get to stepping.
Is this nigga serious?
So she made them track all the way through the freezing cold and through enemy territory to the new camp. So then they also ended up getting hit by an avalanche. So she just standing over him like, wow, y'all some bums. So bro right here is knocked out. So she flies over to him and kicks the shit out of him. Then she just picks up dude right here and she's like, God damn, y'all sorry as shit. So about a month later, their training arc finally completes. And look at her, she's like, I wish some of y'all died. But oh well, congratulations. You are no longer bitches. So let's go catch some bodies. So they end up fighting this one country called Dacia. So while they lighten them up, Tanya's just looking down on them like, wow, they are pathetic. What are they doing? The are they? The British in the Revolutionary War? They're lining up in a line. Nigga, this ain't 1776. So later on, they end up finding their base. So she lands and she's like, greetings, welcome to the fatherland. What is the purpose of your visit? Do you have your visas? Because if not, we're gonna have to deport your asses. Body bags included. So they start shooting at her and she says, so uncivilized. Kill them. Kill them now. So then after this, she's like, all right, y'all wanna have some fun? Let's go to their capital and blow that sky high. So that night, they end up pulling up to their capital. So they end up giving Tanya the megaphone and she's like,
Greetings, everybody. It is my job to inform you that we are about to blow your shit sky f***ing high. This is your only warning.
all right, kill them niggas. So they end up just blowing up the place. Good God. So after this, they end up having another battle. So in this one, she said, just so y'all know, I canceled reinforcements. I need to know if y'all got that dog in y'all. So then these bombers end up pulling up. She's like, yes, time for some action. So then she ends up jumping on the plane. Then she says, greetings and goodbye. I'm gonna just leave this right here if y'all don't mind.
Oh, shit!
So then the other planes start retreating. So she's like, where do y'all think y'all going? Allow me to show you the latest and greatest aimbot installed by German super science. So she shoots it and oh my God, that is the most broken ass I have ever seen. Nah, that aimbot is out of control. That rivals Roberta's. Instead of phase, nah, I'm taking us for a throwback. Optic Tanya, nigga. So then she goes down to inspect the plane. But then time stops and you know who starts speaking to her again.
Yo, what's good, little nigga? You like the ward I sent you to? Send your ass back to World War I so you can dig yourself out the trenches. Literally. That's why I sent your ass to trench warfare, nigga.
But then she ends up just shooting him. She's like, dog, I ain't got time for your bamboozled ass shenanigans today. So then about a minute later, she finds this cabin. So then she says,
Got it! Oh my God.
should have been stationary in a whack-ass wooden building. So then after this, Tanya ends up committing one of the most awful war crimes ever. So a resistance was forming in the Republic territory that they took over. So Tanya's crew pulls up and they try to ambush them. But this did not go well at all because she ended up bodying them. So after they crush this entire resistance, she ends up telling them, yo, all y'all better surrender now. But obviously they don't. So this one Imperial guy ended up running out, but they ended up shooting. But Tanya was recording the entire time, just waiting for them to slip up and take the bait. So that gave her the permission to wipe out the entire town. So she ordered an artillery strike on the entire place and just destroyed everything. Homes, civilians, it didn't matter. Everything was just getting blown up. So hours later, after the barrage finally ends, they end up getting orders to take out the remaining mages. But the thing is, the mages are by a bunch of civilians trying to evacuate. But Tanya's like, I don't care, an order's an order. So bro right here comes in and he tries to stop her. He's like, yo, this is just morally wrong. This is terrible. But she's like, an enemy is an enemy. Look at all them civilians right there. You think that some of them ain't gonna turn into soldiers one day? Oh, buddy, you best believe they are. Woman, kid, it don't matter. So then she smacks homie and puts him on the ground. So then she puts the gun on the ground and she says, so what's it gonna be? You or them? You can follow orders, can't you? So do it! And let's just say, that was a very dark day. So yeah, that was Exhibit B, and it is finally time for our final exhibit, Exhibit C. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we have finally reached our final exhibit, Exhibit C, tearing apart a family. Meet Colonel Sue. a colonel from the U.S., like literally homeboys from Arkansas. So his daughter ends up giving him this gun. And this is very important. So later on, they end up having this battle with Tanya. And Tanya and them fucking them up, I ain't gonna lie. Colonel Sue's forces are dropping like flies. So then he sees Tanya and he starts having PTSD. He's like, wait a minute. I remember you. You're that little girl that took out my whole squad that one day. Swear to God, I'ma kill your ass. So he ends up rushing her, but she just stabs the life out of this man. So she looks at him and she's like, wait a minute. Haven't I seen you before? Well, it really don't matter. You're a side character. I'll be taking that gun, though. So she kills him and leaves him for dead. Or so we thought, because bro was still alive. He somehow tanked it. He tanked it with the power of God. So about a week later, while they on another mission, bro comes back. And look at him, he's dripped out with an eye patch now. So he start going crazy. He got the trench gun and everything. Bro is not playing games. So when he ends up getting close, she kicks a gun out of his hand and pulls out the attack knife. So she stabs him and she's like, yeah. How you like that, big boy? But bro ate the knife and he's about to explode himself. But the little old duckling ended up coming and saving her. So then she pulls out his gun and she's like, say goodnight, motherfucker. So she ended up dumping the whole mag in his ass. Then bro had no choice, so he just blew himself up after that. And look at her coughing. Pack watch, nigga. Rip Bozo, you won't be missed. Appreciate the new gun. So after she offed him, his daughter, the person that gave him that gun, Mary Sue, ended up enlisting to avenge her father. And dear God, her name is Mary Sue for a reason. Because she is a literal Mary Sue. She is broken. She's got the power of Jesus and Tanya's power on crack. So Tanya gets sent off to this country that's basically Russia in their world. So she gives him the mission briefing. So Victoria asks her, yo, are we permitted to defend ourselves or what? And she says, they're communist. Blow the shit out of them. So they get to Moscow and she's like, all right, y'all know what to do, light this bitch up. So they just start wreaking havoc and blowing up everything. Then she saw this statue and said, I don't like that shit, tear that shit down. So then after they destroy the place, she's like, that looks way much better. I should invest in real estate here now. So then after this, they do one of the most absolutely disrespectful things I've ever seen. They plant their flag on their capital and starts to sing their national anthem while shooting a music video. Oh, nah, bro. Who in their right mind would think of this? This is a hostile takeover on another level. She disrespected them in their hood. So then here come old Mary Sue, coconut head ass. So Tanya says, my God, you are a bother. Here, eat my empty mag. So then she gut checks her. And then Mary Sue's like, wait a minute. Isn't this the gun that I bought my dad? Oh, nah, this was the that killed my dad. So then Tanya just starts lighting her up with her own gun that she bought her dad. And she put her ass out of commission. So then a couple days pass out another battle and Mary ends up pulling up again. So they start fighting. So Mary's like, you stupid little nigga, you killed my papa. And Tanya's like, do you think I care? Not my problem, bitch. So Tanya ends up just straight up nuking. So she goes down to see if she's still alive. And she starts walking out that hole like the Terminator. She said, bitch, you best know I'm from Arkansas. I'm a Razorback, nigga. So she ends up socking Tanya and sends her into the spin cycle. Then she's looking at her like, I waited for this day so goddamn long. So she just starts beating her. Mickey, monka, get your ass up, girl. So then after she finishes beating the life out of Tanya, she starts looking at this angel and she's like, yes, praise God. But Tanya ends up throwing a knife in her. So she tries to attack her, but she pops her. Then she said, you uncivilized animal. Tell your daddy I said hello. Oh. Oh my God, bro. She is just different. The dad and the daughter? Demon. But right before she's about to finish her off, homeboy ended up coming in and saving her. Ooh, she got lucky. And look at her. She like, damn. Should have domed her ass. All right, I've seen enough. Sit down. This is just demonic. The war crimes committed, killing your own men, literally traumatizing Mary Sue, as well as killing her father with the gun that she gave him, as well as cussing out God on multiple occasions. This is truly the spawn of Satan. So yeah, that's another episode down. So hope y'all enjoy it. Make sure you follow your boy on IG and Twitter. Sub to the second channel, and I'm out of here. Take a step, I dare you. So he tries to climb it, but he keeps on climbing the same stair over and over and over again. Dio's like, wow, what's wrong? You on 400 pink or something? You know what? While you struggle with your lag spikes, I'm gonna sit in this chair that's conveniently here right over this staircase. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, it is finally time to return to the round table of Black Air Force activity. And our greatest challenger yet has finally approached, to be judged and to take his rightful seat at this sacred table of menaces. And it is none other than the greatest hater in anime history, Dio. The king of hating ass niggas, the pettiest of the petty, probably one of the greatest ops of all time. This man is truly Black Air Force incarnate. So, bro, I ain't even gonna waste no time with this one. So y'all already know we got the evidence on deck. And it is finally time to observe the generational hater. So, without further ado, Exhibit A. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, I now present to you Exhibit A, Dio Brando. So to understand why this man has the most out-of-pocket hatred, we gotta go all the way back to 1880. So Dio started off in the trenches. Man was playing chess for money, getting beat up in the bar, and living in this old ass shack, so bro hella down bad. So his dad is dying, right? So he tells him, alright, listen here, boy. When I die, take this letter to the Joestar family. Now you see, them niggas owe me a debt. I'll tell you, they some rich ass motherfuckers too. So you know what to do. Rob them niggas. Take every last cent. Make Pappy proud. So he dies, so Dio's at the cemetery, and he's like, about damn time your old ass died. I ain't gonna lie, I f***ing hated you. You drove mama to die. You was a piece of shit, so you can eat a dick on, nigga. Pussy. So later on, Dio pulls up to the Joestar mansion. So Jonathan's like, hi, my name's Jonathan. This is my dog, Danny. So Dio's like, that's your dog? Yeah, isn't he great? Shit, nigga, f*** your dog. Oh my God, bro, somebody call Peter. This nigga just totally need the dog. Bro ain't even been here for a minute and he already starting shit. Look at him, bro, he already ready to scrap. So the dad come out and he like, yo, what are y'all doing? And Dio's like, oh, I am terribly sorry. That filthy animal was in my personal space. So George tells Jonathan, all right, listen, Dio's gonna be living here from now on. So Jonathan goes over to touch his bag, but Dio grabs his hand and elbows him in the chest. So he comes down and he's like, listen, little nigga, this is my house now. I run this bitch, so I wanna hear shit from your little spoiled ass. I'm about to make your life hell. So as time goes on, as they start living together, Jonathan's having this boxing match. So the ref's like, hey, just to let you know, your opponent got changed.
Huh?
Yeah, you gonna be fighting him.
Oh my God.
Round one. Fight!
Oh my goodness, ladies and gentlemen, he can't even hit him. And a beautiful body shot landed by Dio. And a beautiful right straight to the jaw. Oh my God, yo, this man just watched him in front of his hometown. So after Dio humiliated Jonathan, Jonathan started talking to, you know, Arena and everything. So this man Dio decided to do the pettiest shit. He pulls up on her and says, hey, you JoJo girl, he been looking a little happy lately, and I don't like that a bit. Oh my gosh, bro, this man is so petty. And he says, oh, you thought your first kiss was gonna be with JoJo? Nah, it was with me, nigga! So later on, Jonathan ends up running up on Dio, and bro's like, how dare you raise your voice at me? You should learn some respect. So he elbows him in the nose. And bro's like, stupid little nigga, you just mad cause I rizzed up your girl real good. But then Jonathan just started laying the hands on him, hit this man with the Dempsey roll. So Dio's like, how dare you lay your hands on my beautiful face? Swear to God, I'ma shake your ass. But then George ends up stopping him. So Dio's like, don't think you're getting away with this. I don't take L's. So later on, the butler is walking outside and he's at the furnace and he sees this box. So he's like, it's just a box. So he lights the furnace, but then something start banging. So then later on in the day, they having a funeral cause the dog was in the furnace. Oh my God, bro, this man Dio put the dog in the furnace to burn him. Oh my God. So a couple of years pass and they end up becoming friends. Well, not really, because this man Dio is fake as hell. So George Joestar has gotten sick and he has a very bad cough. So the thing is, Dio has been giving this man medicine the whole time, but not his real medicine. This man has been poisoning him the entire time. And then Jonathan figured out, wait a minute, didn't your dad have the same symptoms too? Oh my God, you killed your father. So then Dio's like, are you trying to press me right now? So he ends up swinging on Jonathan, but Jonathan just ate that John. Boy was like, bro, you best get to stepping out of my house. So he ends up throwing him off the balcony. So Jonathan's like, you a fake ass nigga, and I'm calling the cops.
You need to leave.
So Dio ends up dipping, but he takes the stone mask. So later on, he out here drunk as hell. So he ends up running into these two dudes. So bro smacks him in the jaw. And he's like, this is a perfect time. Time to test out this stone mask. So he puts it on this dude and runs him into the other dude so it stabs him. So then the mask activates with the blood. And he done turned this man into a whole vampire. So the dude starts to choke him out, but that top of the morning end up getting his ass. So after this, Dio pulls back up to the house. So Jonathan runs up on him. He was like, yeah, I done figured out you've been poisoning my dad. So Dio's trying to plead his case. Then Speedwagon in the corner like, I don't trust that nigga with his old capping ass. And then George is behind the curtains. So Dio's like, well, I ain't got nothing to lose now. Bring me that ass. So he ends up stabbing George. And he's like, yes, it's Morbin Tom. So they end up shooting him and Dio ends up going out the window. So about a minute later, while everybody thinking he dead, they're like, why is his body gone? And he rips this man's head clean off. And now he's a whole ass vampire. So bro just started bodying everybody in the house. So then he goes over to fight Jonathan, but he ends up burning him. But obviously that ain't do nothing. He just shrugged it off. And yo, look at this man walking up the wall like a Louis Vuitton model. What the f? Nigga said Kim K ain't got shit on me. And look at Jonathan. He like, oh my God. His zestiness is too strong. So mans had to tackle him all the way from the roof and impale this man on a spear so he could finally burn the ash. But obviously that's not gonna work.
Hello?
So after this, Dio does a bunch of shenanigans. First off, this man turned Jack the Ripper into a vampire. So then he goes over and takes over this entire village, turned basically almost everybody into zombies, kidnapped this little boy's sister, stepped on this dog. What the f is that, bro? Like, honest to God. And then, oh boy, this is probably the worst thing this man ever did. So he got this lady and her baby up here. So she's like, please, please just spare my child. And Dio's like, bitch, please, who you think I is, your baby daddy? I ain't got time to take care of your damn kid. So he turns her into a zombie and makes her eat her baby. No, I'm done, no. This is probably the first time I've ever done this, but I don't care. Go ahead and sit down, bro. I'm done. This is the most demonic shit I have ever seen. Besides when Boo faded niggas in heaven, this is right behind it. What the actual f? Nah, bro, we ain't even done with Exhibit A, and I just had to go ahead and sit the mans, bro. I had to give this man a fast pass. He skipped the line. Bro said, yeah, I'll spare him, all right. So after a bunch of traumatic ass events, Jonathan finally pulls up on Dio, so he's like, wow, congratulations, you beat all of my sub-bosses. Tell me real quick, how's that Zeppeli pack hitting? So then they about to scrap, but Dyer comes in and he's like, no, this is my fight. So he jumps up to kick him, but Dio grabs both of his legs and makes him do the splits. Then he freezes his entire body. Then he says, you know, men shouldn't do the splits, right? Because that's how you break your balls. Yo, bro shattered this man's body. So then Jonathan comes in and slices him in half with his sword. But Dio's like, you really thought that old bullshit was gonna work? Say psych right now. Let me tell you something right now. Yo, Hamon training is ass. You are ass. So then Dio jumps at him, but Jonathan hits him with this 1080 Falcon punch. So Dio's like, impossible.
Gas you, Barry the Platypus!
So some time passes. So Jonathan and Erina end up getting married. So while they are on their honeymoon, Jonathan ends up seeing one of Dio's assistants. So he runs after him and they end up going to this casket. So bro opens the casket and he pulls Dio's head out of the casket. Then Dio says, happy honeymoon, nigga. Hey, first off, I just want to give my congratulations, even though I did steal your girl's first kiss. Congratulations, my bad I couldn't make the wedding, bro. I knew I would have been your best man, right? Tell me something real quick. How my lips taste? So bro laser beams this man, turns everybody on this ship into zombies, and ends up jacking this man's body. And he rested at the bottom of the ocean for years, 1889 to 1983. So yeah, that was Exhibit A, and it's finally time to move on to Exhibit B. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I now present to you Exhibit B, Dio. So after Dio came out of his casket in 1983, this is when he took stuff to the next level. Bro was on his Kanye arc. Nigga dropped off his last name and said, you will know me as capital D, capital I, capital O. Mans was going around beating cheeks, beat some cheeks, made Giorno, beat some more cheeks, had 3 other ugly ass kids with Jonathan's body, and he would just drink their blood after he finished beating their cheeks. Then he ended up meeting Poochie, his hating ass successor, passed down his hating ass ideology to this nigga, got his stand from Enya the Hag's ugly ass. And yo, this man was just so mysterious at the beginning of Stardust Crusaders. You ain't even see his face till like 45 episodes later. Everybody just had stories of meeting him. Avdol was like, yeah, I saw that nigga. I was walking up the stairs, right, and I saw this big motherfucker. He was licking his lips and shit. But I was like, hell no, I ain't into that freaky shit, you feel me? So I jumped out the window and I hit the dash, bro. I was stepping. Then they ran into Polnareff. Polnareff was like, yeah, I remember that nigga. Yo, he brainwashed me and shit. Mans took me into this room and he had the gypsy ball and shit. Nigga was like, I can tell your future. And he brainwashed this man Kakyoin too. But nah, it's what he did to Whole Horse. While Dio was reading a book, this man really tried to pull a gun on him. Then when he's about to shoot him, Dio's like, are you positive you want to pull that trigger? Then bro teleports right behind him. And he was like, ooh la la. I liked how you pulled that gun out on me. We should do this more often. Dog had this man shaking in his boots. So when they finally get to Egypt after facing all the sub-bosses, Polnareff ends up walking up on this staircase and finally finds Dio. So Dio's like, wow, congratulations, y'all made it. I mean, you down 2 people, but congratulations. Hey, but I'll tell you this though, you walk up that step, you're dead. Take a step, I dare you. So he tries to climb it, but he keeps on climbing the same stair over and over and over again. Dio's like, wow, what's wrong? You on 400 ping or some shit? You know what? While you struggle with your lag spikes, I'm gonna sit in this chair that's conveniently here right over this staircase. So then everybody else finally ends up coming in. So Dio's like, the sunlight, I must retreat. So about a minute later, they climb this staircase and they see this casket. So Joseph's like, hey, ugly ass boy, open the casket. So he opens the casket and he sees himself in the casket. So they like, oh shit, hey, jump up. Yo, the fact that this man Dio put this this man in the casket like that? Man's killed him in the blink of an eye and shoved him in the casket just so he could give him a little scare. So they are running away and Dio's like, yes, the hunt begins. So later on, bro walking down the street and he's like, I like this car. So Dog's like, hey, what you think you're doing, cuz? This car belongs to the senator. But he just breaks his arm and hops in the car. So then he looks at the senator, rips out his two front teeth, and he says, looks like you got a date with the tooth fairy tonight. Now get your ass in the front seat and drive. So while they driving, they hit a traffic jam. So the senator's like, yo, I can't drive. Then Dio says, you know the sidewalk's wide open, right? So he starts driving on the sidewalk and Dio says, floor it. So he made this man run over all these people just to get out of a traffic jam. Jesus Christ. So he finally ends up catching up to him. So Kakyoin tries to use Emerald Splash on him, but Dio just looks at it. He's like, wow, so pretty. Get that shit out my face. Then bro socks him. So while they keep on driving, he throws the senator through their car. So they end up dipping and going on top of the roof, so Dio follows him. So then Kakyoin sets up this trap. So it's like, haha, I have you now. So show me your stand ability. So Dio's like, alright then, witness true hatred. Ratio! So then Dio goes over to him and says, this is my stand ability, Zaratio. I can stop time and ratio anybody in the amount of mere seconds. In just a blink of an eye, I can freeze your account and gain hundreds, no, thousands of likes before you even gain one. Now, I'm about to fist you. And no pause, because we're already paused. Resume. So Joseph was like, oh nah, what's the best thing I know how to do? Hit the jets and get the stepping. So while he's chasing Joseph down, he ends up punching him off this roof. So Joseph sees Jotaro and he's like, oh my God, my nigga, do not come any closer. So then Dio sees him and he's like, both of them at the same time. Time to end this mid-ass bloodline. Horatio! So then Dio comes down and just starts walking towards him, smacking cats, smacking people like they mannequins. And he's like, I could only used to give one L at a time, but now I can give two. It'll eventually be 10 to 20 to thousands. So I leave you with my parting gift. And with that, ratio. So then he looks at Jotaro and he's like, you're next, little nigga. So Jotaro starts walking towards him. So he's like, so you're approaching me? You trying to fall off like your granddaddy, nigga? But he's like, nah, I gotta get closer to you so I can beat the shit out your ass. So Dio's like, I like that. I like that energy, nigga. Come get this fade. So they start boxing and Dio hits him with this nasty hook. And he's like, that's what I used to hit your granddaddy with back in the day. Now catch this ratio. So they keep on scrapping, so Jotaro ends up punching him into this jewelry store. So while he's knocked out, he gets up and looks at the lady. He's like, hey, make yourself useful and fetch me my leg. So she started to get scared, so he said, bitch, hurry the up and give me my goddamn leg. So he ends up killing her and taking her blood, and he's like, oh, we just getting started, you overgrown man-child. I hope you're ready for a knife party. So then bro ended up throwing all these knives at this man. Like, can somebody please tell me where this man was storing all of these knives at? Like, for real, like, ain't no way that belt buckle handled all of those. So he ended up stabbing him. So while he's on the ground, Dio's like, I guess I'll just kill him with this road sign. But then Polnareff comes from the top rope. And then Dio just stops on me. He's like, oh, that tickled. Go ahead and move to the side for me. So then the cops pull up, but Dio's like, really? 12. So then he starts controlling the other cop. And he's like, I need you to aim right and precisely right there. So he makes him shoot him. And yo, this man is so determined to make sure that he is dead. He is lying on the ground trying to hear a heartbeat. Bro's like, I better not hear this nigga take a breath. But you know what, just to make sure, I'm gonna chop off his head with this road sign. But Jotaro ended up cracking him upside the head. And he hit him so hard, he can't even move his legs. So he's like, no, I gotta go. So he ends up stopping time and hanging onto the back of this taxi. But then Jotaro ends up chasing him down. And why is he in the sewer right now? So then he ends up sending Dio flying. But then this man Dio starts screaming at him. He's like, ha ha, you fool! You fell for my trap! Don't you remember this same street? So we ended up punching him to the street that Joseph's body is at. And he ends up taking all of his blood. He sucked that man dry, pause. And now he's awakened Dio. And bro is losing his mind. He's like, yes, this glorious power is even giving me green lipstick. Oh, I can't wait to give you a big, fat, juicy kiss. So they start scrapping again, and Dio is just starting to go off the deep end now. Bro's like, this body is so juicy. Now run me my money, nigga. So Jotaro ends up going flying. So Dio's like, oh, Jojo, what do you think you're going, you sack of shit? With this final attack, I will finally end your mid-ass bloodline for good. The ratio. So then he comes down and he's like, I'm about to create the greatest meme in anime history. 1 L has passed. 2 L's have passed. 3 L's have passed. So we gotta be thinking, okay, yo, what is this man charging up? It's gotta be like a spirit bomb or a Sengun, a Getsuga, or I don't know, a Dragon Fist. No, this man does the unthinkable. This man dropped a steamroller on him. He dropped a steamroller on him. Who in their right mind would think of this? Bro saying, I could end his life with anything right now. You know what I want to do? I'm going to fly over to this construction site, grab this big ass steamroller, fly it all the way back, and slam it on this. What? That is just doing the most. So then he starts beating me. And for the longest time, for all these years, I thought, yo, he's beating the hell out of this with his fist. No, take a closer look. He is beating this with his elbows. He got some elbow action going on with this shit. So then he's like, it's no use. You fell off.
Oh, shit!
So then Dio's like, yes, I finally done it. After all these long years. Ratio power! I have finally ratioed the entire fucking Joestar family. All you bitch ass niggas fell the off. My ratio power has now exceeded to 9 L's. But then Dio ends up realizing he can't move because Jotaro just stopped time. It was like, impossible. This is bullshit. So then he ends up kicking him off the steamroller. So then they end up having one final clash. But then Jotaro hit him with a counter ratio.
Why do you have so much power?
Then he says, you know, man, there's only one reason why you lost. You just simply pissed me off. Get off my family dick. So yeah, I mean, I already sat the man, so what more could I say? I mean, I could get into some of the stuff that happens in part 6, but that would be getting into spoilers for anime only, so I'm not gonna do all that. But yeah, bro, this man is a menace. This is a demon incarnate. Man tormented this family for damn near 100 years, made a lady eat her own child, and along with dropping a steamroller on a nigga, no, pack your bags. Bro, pass this test with ease. Hey, I ain't gonna lie, I forgot to record the outro, so I'll just leave y'all with this. God dog, ball hungry as a bitch. Hey, nobody awake, so I'm about to gobble on this glit.
Oh, shit.
Alright, ladies and gentlemen, it is finally time to return to the round table of Black Air Force activity because today we got a special one. Because the last time we had one like this, it was about a good year ago. But ladies and gentlemen, stepping up to the plate, the teenage tormentor himself, Slade, the childhood menace, the master manipulator. This is one of the most devious, vile, disgusting
Fallout Equestria, Project Horizons. 73, 4, 5. Pushing a button. 27 to 67. My heart beat harder and harder, and I could make out the distant noises of them saying things to me. Guts spilling out of my torso. I felt like I was falling into the sky to break against the dark clouds overhead. The roaring in my ears chased me into the blackness. What was the price for killing so many? I awoke to the steady tap of water falling into a coffee tin near my head. My head pounded as I opened my eyes. I wasn't exactly sure where I was, only that I was alone. For once, I didn't feel like crying. It felt as though something inside me had snapped. Maybe I'd finally gone off the deep end and killed both my friends. Wouldn't that be something? Water dripped through a hole in the roof into the tin, and I could dimly hear the sound of rain. The room was small but neatly organized. A desk in one corner was terminal, a safe, a shelf held numerous books, a refrigerator in the second corner, wastebasket, then the cot I occupied in the third corner. I saw a toilet and sink through one open door. A faded plastic banner hung near the ceiling reading, Megamart, always lowest prices, always highest quality. Lowest prices. There were other things too. Little hints of a world before this one. The Megamart Employee of the Year had been some pony named Boxcars. There was a little award for record profits selling canned and preserved foods and ammunition. A strange photograph of two groups of soldiers in the parking lot, one in green combat armor and the other zebras with red stripes. A curly-maned mare with purple glasses-bumped hoofs with a zebra filly. The caption read, Macintosh's Marauders invade Megamart with the red stripes. Great deals ensue. I was back with the finders, which meant that my friends were probably alive. I felt a little relieved at that thought. I should have felt more relieved. Slowly I rocked back and forth before tipping over onto my hoofs. I could only assume that this was Bottlecap's office, though why I was here I didn't have a clue. My stomach felt like a pit, but there were some biological urges that needed addressing. Once I'd flushed, a drink of rainwater from the tip helped alleviate some of the pounding in my skull. "Welcome back," Bottlecap said softly from behind her desk as she casually turned the pages of a book, making me jump. My magic immediately grabbed for weapons that weren't there. It took me a moment to finally sit back on my haunches and blink at her as she scanned a hoof along the page. "You are a very quiet pony," I muttered, feeling embarrassed by my alarm. "Not really. You have very noisy bowels. Leave the fan on and close the door," she said as she continued to read. I reddened, but did as she asked, feeling apprehensive. I expected a question or comment, but Bottlecap didn't say a word as she just read. Then she said softly, "Your friends have handled the transactions while you've been indisposed. They took your barding to be repaired. I recommended some additional protection. 425 caps for the glance. 2,500 from the Society account. 2,200 from the Orion Brotherhood. You're halfway to your goal, minus the cost of resupply." News that we'd amassed a small fortune in caps didn't do much for me. Did they tell you what happened?" I asked as I sat down on the cot in that vertical fashion that drew a curious look from Bottlecap. "Should they have? You were unconscious when the three of you got here. I felt you'd recover better with some privacy." She looked up from her ledger and gave a little smile and shrug. "I'm usually too busy to sleep, so it was no trouble." I rubbed my face. "I fell apart out there," I admitted. "I must have gone a little crazy." "Perhaps, but I doubt it. I suspect it was the simple result of you throwing yourself at a bit too much wasteland. I take it that, DuPont 3's accounts aside, your experience has been somewhat terrible." I cringed in anticipation of the H word, but it never came. Instead, Bottlecap looked back down at the book. "I never understood his habit of casting ponies in the role of hero or villain. It seems a bit immature." "So you don't think I'm a hero?" "Hero." She said the word almost with disdain. "The wasteland is no place for heroes. It chews heroes up and swallows them. They burn out, burn up, or change for the worse. The price of being a hero is just too high in the wasteland." Bottlecap said as she sat, looking at me with a warm smile. I think you're an individual and judge you accordingly, instead of holding you to some romantic ideal of how I think you should act. I gave the Yellow Mare a grateful smile in return. Well, thanks for loaning me your bed. I'm better now. I should probably check in on P21 and Glory and look for more work. Yup, all better now. Whatever had happened on the road was done with, and I didn't have to worry about it. Nope, not at all. Guts spread over cracked asphalt. Not at all. It's 3 in the morning, Bottlecap said simply. Your friends and most of Megamat are asleep. Oh, I didn't mean to keep you awake, I said as I looked over the ledger, but it made little sense to me. What are you working on? Finding a way to keep the Megamat in business, she replied as she looked at the numbers. The only thing I do every day. Your work on the Manhattan Highway gave us some wiggle room, but we're bleeding trade months after months. Really? I'm sorry you're losing money. I knew less about business than I did terminals and medicine. My condolences seemed to amuse her. Money comes and goes. What we're losing is trade, she said as she closed her ledger. There's 3 trade hubs for the Finders, and we're all in competition with each other. Competition? If you're Finders, shouldn't you work together? Bottlecap sighed and walked to the fridge, taking out 2 Sparkle Colas. She bit the caps off and spat them into her desk drawer. I levitated one over and enjoyed chilled carroty goodness. It's more complicated than that. You see, my father is the owner of the Finders. He has 3 daughters, one of which is me. Each of my sisters controls the other 2 hubs. Unfortunately, my sisters and I have different economic philosophies, she said with a scowl and a regretful sigh. When father dies, one of us will assume control. I'm sure you can see the dilemma. I'm afraid I still don't get it, I replied. Sorry, I wish I was smarter about this whole marketing stuff. One good thing about talking with Bottlecap, it occupied all of my brainpower. I barely thought about pushing a button. Barely. I swallowed as I felt my hooves shake on the bottle. What, you don't get along with your sisters or something? Caprice is of the opinion that the Finders should diversify away from pure salvage. She peddles sex and camps to any pony willing to pay for it from the Finders hub and flank. She sees nothing wrong with sucking every last cap out of an addict. She's quite experienced at that. She scowled in thought, then glanced at me with a small smile. As you can guess, she thinks I'm simply a prude. I don't understand. Isn't getting caps the point of business? What would be the point of having a pile of caps? To swim in? Bottlecap said with a smile as she dug out one of the caps and held it up. This is just a stamped piece of metal. What matters is trade. Taking goods for caps. Selling goods and getting caps. The amount of caps doesn't matter compared to the trade. If anything has a chance of holding us together, it's trade. After all, every pony wants something. I laughed softly, hoping I wasn't being too rude. Sorry, but you sound so serious about it. How do merchants save Equestria? Is that so shocking? Trade requires rules, understanding, and agreements. It demands a certain level of respect and acknowledgement for others. I suppose I could have pushed my profit margins a little more aggressively, but that would strain trade even more. This way I help contribute to the peace and order of the wasteland, Bottlecap said as she finished her Sparkle Cola. I know it might seem silly, but it's a big wasteland that I'm absolutely lousy with a gun. I remembered how often I thought I was useless because all I could do is shoot things. Trust me, being good with a gun isn't much better. I disagree. Bottlecap cocked her head with a pleasant smile. You do things, Blackjack. By your hoof and your will, ponies live and die. That's the power that... Her eyes looked at me solemnly and sadly. I see. My heart had redoubled its pounding. I struggled for breath. The bottle of Sparkle Cola slipped from my magic and the brown liquid sloshed over the floor. I did everything I could to stop the shaking in my forelegs. It's not a power I should have, that any pony should have. She looked at me sadly and didn't say a word. She waited for my heart rate to slow, for the vertigo to pass. Then she spoke in a soft, respectful tone. But it is a power you do have, Blackjack, and it is a power that many ponies are willing to use, eager to use. I used my power to kill children, I said as I clenched my eyes shut. I could still hear the singing. Why had we sung as they died? 40. I couldn't help myself. I put out every terrible event that occurred, finishing with what happened with the Raiders. Bottlecap closed her eyes, seeming to ruminate on everything that I'd told her. Then she said quietly, "There was no right choice, Blackjack, but I would have done the same thing." Slowly I opened my eyes to look at her solemn features. "The Collegiate are fine ponies, but they don't care for fixing ponies broken centuries ago. They're more interested in discovering lost spells and technology. Those folds would have remained as you left them for centuries. They wouldn't have pulled the plug, they simply would have closed the door. As for the Enclave helping, why would they? They weren't Pegasus folds." "Maybe the blood is on my hoofs, though. I'll have to pay for it someday," I muttered. I levitated the bottle up, drank what remained inside, and then carefully levitated the fluid off the floor. I wasn't very sure I could do it, actually, but I managed to get most of the spilled soda into a fizzy, dirty, faintly radioactive ball and down the sink. Bottlecap waited for me to finish before continuing. "Yes, you will. You're paying for it right now." I looked at her in shock. I'd expected... What had I expected? "And you'll keep paying until you don't care anymore. You'll pay for that blood even if you do nothing but sit back in a glorified store." "You? But unless your employee discipline policy involves executions, who have you killed?" I gasped. Bottlecap? A killer? I wasn't seeing it. "You've seen the bounties posted. I'm not naive enough to believe they're all guilty and deserving of death, but I connect bounty hunters to bounties. I sell the ammunition and weapons that kill them. In my own way, I've facilitated the death of thousands of ponies. But I have to hope that in the end I've helped more than I've hurt." She looked at me, saying levelly, "If I lose that, I'm no better than my sister Ursery in Paradise." "Ursery?" I straightened as I remembered the freed ponies mentioned Paradise. I may not be a smart pony, but I made the connection. "Your sister runs a slave market? The Finders are involved in the slave trade?" "We are now," Bottlecap said as she closed her eyes with a reserved frown. "Ursery believed it was a mistake to ignore the slave market. That ponies are every bit as much as a commodity as salvage or sex." She sighed softly. "Like I said, Megamart is losing trade. More and more ponies go to Paradise and Flank instead of here to exchange goods. And when father dies, I'll either be selling drugs and flesh or ponies." She smiled grimly. "Though, more like I'll simply quit and set up shop in Tenpony or Friendship City. Some things I'm not willing to buy or sell." Somehow I figured she wasn't talking about salvage anymore. I looked at Bottlecap for the longest time, feeling odd emotions churning inside me. Respect. No. Admiration. Here was a pony that had lived in the wasteland her entire life and refused to sell out her integrity. Even when it hurt her business, she insisted on doing the right thing. I didn't really think it was possible for businesses to care more about their effects than wealth. I suddenly had a feeling about how I could pay off some of my debt. "So, how do I hurt her trade?" I asked quietly. "Are you able to?" Bottlecap stood and walked to me with a probing expression. "Because if you want to do something in the wasteland, some pony is going to get hurt. Maybe you, maybe your friends. Maybe some pony who deserves to get hurt. Maybe some pony who doesn't. Can you handle it?" Then I realized what she was asking. Could I hurt? Could I kill? Could I handle paying the price for being a killer? Or would I keep breaking over and over again till there was nothing left? "I don't know," I replied. "I thought I was. Now I don't know what to think." "Guess we'll find out," Bottlecap said softly. "You already struck a blow against her, thanks to DJ Pawn 3. I'll never know how he got that recording, but I'm sure every slaving band is wondering just how much of a threat you really are. The more you disrupt supply, the better. But eventually, you'll have to tackle the demand. Some, like Red Eye in Philadelphia, probably wouldn't stop unless he died. But there are others, like Brimstone's Fall, where the slave operations are smaller and more manageable." I glanced at my pip-buck and noticed that it had added a square far to the south and west of Megamart. How did it do that? Bottlecap noticed my look and smiled. "I can't, of course, offer you a contract for this. If my sister thought I was deliberately undermining them, it would be all-out war within the Finders." I looked back at her. Do better. Could I? I had to. Otherwise, I'd be nothing more than a killer. "Know of any contract work in the area?" I offered a tense smile. After all, trouble seems to find me easily enough. When it does, who can say what'll happen? The jobs were simple and legitimate. Patrol the Sunset Highway between Megamart and Flank, poke through the Miramare Air Station for some electronic parts, and deliver some mail to Flank's residence. The route would also take me within spitting distance of Brimstone's Fall. If something happened to put a dent in the demand side of the slave trade, then it not only helps the people of the wasteland, but Bottle Cap as well. I wasn't sure if I was good with this or not. Unlike my first talk with Watcher, I didn't feel much more confident. I still wanted to do better, though. Watcher, DJ Pawn 3, Bottle Cap, even the figurine of Fluttershy, all extolled me to do better, do more, help others. If I did, maybe I'd be able to come to terms with all the wrong things I'd done, pay my price. Still, first things first, get a new shotgun and pick up my barding. The specialty rounds were effective, but hell on the workings of a gun. I'd need to save them or start carrying backup shotguns. Actually, given that every pony was asleep at this hour, what I should do was go back to bed till dawn. The thought of trying to take a nap didn't appeal much, though. "Enter up," I heard a mare, Keystone I think her name was, say from the entrance. My ears stood right up and I moss-eyed over to where 5 ponies sat around a table. And they had cards and colored chits. A true, real smile crossed my face. "Deal me in?" I gave her my widest and sincerest I won't tell the overmare smile. The mottled grey and green mare looked up in surprise and a little suspicion. "You know head and hoof style?" I shook my head, but I guessed they knew we'd gotten paid today. It was actually really similar to a style of poker Rivets had been fond of. You got 2 cards face down, your head, and then 2 cards were turned face up, your hoofs. Every round you added a card to either your head or your hoofs as you raised the bet. Every pony made the best hand out of 7. With 6 players, that meant keeping track of 42 cards. With half a deck in play, it was more gamble than figuring out the odds. They forwarded some chips for me and we got to playing. In 2 hours, the game broke down more and more between me and Keystone. She was a lot smarter than me and she kept making smart bets. Me? I won big. I lost big too. Still, I won just a bit more than I lost with each hoof dealt. The cards and the winning were only half of it, though. Contrary to what I'd thought, I'd missed this. The banter, the jokes, the remembrances of a life where I didn't expect to kill some pony every day. Then, of course, there was the whiskey. I had to admit I'd never really drunk before. We didn't have alcohol in Stable 99, so my first drink went down like a sparkle cola. Once I'd stopped coughing and choking, I figured out that whiskey was supposed to be drunk slowly rather than fast, and soon I had a pleasant warmth in my belly that quickly drove out all the fears and doubts rolling around in my skull. I felt happy. Then I saw a ghost. The unicorn Buck stood at the end of a row of scrap metal. His brown mane and tan hide were nothing spectacular. The only thing that stood out was an odd cutie mark. A cutie mark identical to P21's. U21. I rose to my hoofs as he disappeared out of sight. "Deal me out this round. I need to take a leak." That was information I did not need to know, Keystone replied, happily taking my cards. When I ran down the row, weaved down the row, she called after me. "Hey, toilets are that way. Don't be pissing on the merchandise." "Here, pony, 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 pony," I called out as I made my way to the end of the row and turned. "I just want to ask you a few questions about Mr. Deus and Sanguine. I'm not gonna hurt ya." I really hoped I wouldn't have to hurt him. It'd be nice to get some answers without hurting any pony. I spotted him fidgeting next to 2 pallets stacked high with rusty generators or electrical equipment. He stared at me, swallowing as he trembled. "Hey, U21, you met some pony named Sanguine. I really want to meet him too." "I'm sorry," he muttered, and then his shaking stopped. His lips curled in a small, satisfied smirk. "But he only wants your pip back." His horn flared brightly. "Oh, horse!" I started to say when a powerful telekinetic field wrapped around my throat and squeezed tight, lifting me into the air. Then what I'd taken for a heap of scrap slowly rose to his hooves.
Hello, security cunt.
In the stable he'd looked big. Now he looked huge. Even ignoring the metal plates fused to his height and the pistons supporting his weight, he stood a whole head higher than me. The sight of metal plunging into flesh, distorting it as he moved, would normally have turned my stomach. Just at the moment though, I had enough sobriety to notice, but more than enough inebriation to not care about it.
Are you sure you're okay? The librarian asked, adjusting her half-moon spectacles as she spoke. Her old eyes narrowed with scrutiny, and her hoof drifted to rub at her chin. If you need more time, then that is, I'm fine. The mayor with the red mane cut her off with a sharp shake of her head. It's been months. Just start me with something simple so I can ease back into it. The librarian looked at her for several seconds, like an arcane engineer scrutinizing his latest invention for flaws. In the end, though, she relented with a sigh and a shrug of her aged shoulders. Oh, very well, she said before nodding her head back for the shelves behind the counter. We have books that were recently returned that need to be reshelved. I think you can take care of that. The mayor nodded gratefully, but otherwise didn't say anything as she slid behind the counter. As she lost herself amidst the forest of shelves and books, both new and old, her mind was lost in the tumult of her own thoughts. I don't need sympathy, she thought bitterly, her purple eyes tracing the shelves. I don't need compassion, and I don't need time off. I've had too much of that. She soon came upon her target, an aisle of shelves marked returns. Her horn lit up with an amethyst-colored light, plucking various books from the shelves and floating them up to her face. Her mind danced into work, already knowing where each one went. One of the books caught her attention more than the others, and she frowned. Talons and Spellfire, a history of the War of Retribution, was labeled across the front cover in orange letters, hovering above an artistic rendition of a battered Earth Pony soldier standing triumphantly over the corpses of fallen griffins and ponies alike. The mayor with the red mane scoffed. It never looked like that. She seethed under her breath before bitterly shoving that book back onto the shelf. With a huff, she took the others with her to be reshelved, leaving the Book of War to collect dust. Swan Run. It was a charming city, to be sure. Its white stone buildings caught the light of the setting sun magnificently, making the sprawling city on the cliffside look like a glittering diamond on the edge of the world. Ponies could be seen coming and going through the open city gates far below, all of them blissfully unaware of the Pegasus soaring high above their heads. His cold eyes narrowed as they swept through the streets, searching for one pony in particular. Every nook, cranny, and alley was scanned, but alas, his prey was as elusive as ever. Doubtless she had found some obscure hole to hide out in. The Pegasus would have to wait for her to poke her little head out before he could snip it off. His hooves lightly touched down on one of the roofs of Swan Run's residential districts. The roof was made of a darker stone than the walls and sloped into a shallow dome shape to allow for the frequent rains of the area to slide harmlessly down into the cobblestone streets below. He moved forward, his dark, form-fitting leather armor not even making a rustle as he went. He was as silent as a corpse in the grave. Quite fitting. As he came to the edge of the roof, he scanned the streets one more time. His wings ruffled on his sides, and the blades hidden between his feathers all but itched to be released and put to work. Soon, he whispered to himself, his eyes lifting up to look at the distant storm clouds rolling in from the distance. She can't run from me forever. The light brown unicorn was barely able to restrain a foolish squeal of delight as he pried open the wooden box on his table, revealing the contents within. He was standing in the middle of a complex and very untidy workshop, loaded with tools of all shapes, sizes, and functions. Several desks sat around the edges, each one loaded with notes and sketches of artifacts from before the fall, or of ponies of note. None of that really mattered to the unicorn just that moment, though. With a cyan glow of magic coming from his horn, he slid the contents of the box out and studied it. The old piece of rusted metal may have just been some bit of shrapnel to any other pony, but to the unicorn, it was a gateway into the past, a small window through which he could see the old world. "Oh, look at you," he breathed out in wonder, his eyes following the shape of it, and quickly deducing that it was an engine of some description. If he had to crack a guess, it had to be the remains of one of those old steam engines used before the fall and the rise of arcane engineering. "You're gorgeous. A little dinged up, pretty rusty, and a small piece," he continued muttering to himself as he took off his spectacles with his magic. In their place, he secured a pair of heavy and unruly golden goggles that magnified his vision many times over. "But if you're anything to go off of, I'm sure the rest of the shipment will have plenty of stories to tell." With that, he began to examine the shrapnel in excruciating detail, taking extensive notes on a series of notepads that now floated freely around him in his magic. He became lost in the work, making notes for the people over at the Arcane University to make use of. Time began to pass, and he was only aware of how much when a ping came into his mind. Curious, he lifted his goggles and looked over at one of the only windows that populated the walls of his workshop. He trotted over and peered through the small gap in the tightly drawn curtains, and his eyes widened. "Wait, is that?" His artifact forgotten, he discarded his goggles and made a mad dash for the front door of his home. He was already out of the workshop as the goggles clattered to the wooden panels below. Thunder boomed overhead in the dark, cloud-smothered night sky over Swan Run. The purple-maned filly turned her eyes up to the heavens with a small squeak at the deafening sound, her pupil shrinking in alarm. A few of the many ponies around her on the crowded street looked up as well. One or two swore under their breath at the realization that a downpour was imminent. "You may want to find your way home, little lass," one pony, a stallion, said to her as he passed. She turned to look at him, only to realize he had already started to trot away from her, soon vanishing into the ocean of colorful bodies. The filly stood there for a few seconds. A breeze washed by, causing her long, tangled, and messy mane to drift lazily around her dirt-smeared face. She heaved a quiet sigh, shook her head, and turned to continue her slow trot down the street.
"I don't have a home,"
she whispered to herself.
"Not here, at least."
The filly felt the first drop of rain splatter across her muzzle, making her grimace. She shook her head and glared bitterly up at the heavens. Was it too much to ask for the sky to wait for her to find some cover before beginning to dump its contents all over the world? Another few drops hitting her face answered her question. With a disappointed growl, the filly returned her eyes to the street ahead. Most of the ponies that had been out had already vanished back into their homes, leaving her without a crowd to blend into. She briefly looked up at the sky again, this time keeping an eye out for something other than the rain, and ducked into a nearby alley. As the force of the rain swelled into torrential downpour, the filly found herself lucky. At the base of a 2-story home, she could see a wooden cellar door just sticking out from the foundation. Moving quickly, the filly made her way to the door. There was an old, rusty padlock on it, but she knew how to deal with that. Taking off her saddlebags, she quickly fished out a small knife, the kind one might use to spread butter. She briefly paused when she caught sight of the blue crystal lamp at the bottom of the pouch. She stared at it for several long seconds, her ears drooping. She didn't have time to get lost in her thoughts, though. The sound of some pony moving nearby spurred her into action. With her heart rate increasing, she quickly shoved the knife into the keyhole of the padlock and pushed. With a metallic crack, the padlock came undone, and the filly swiftly descended into the cellar, closing the doors behind her. The body in her trembling hooves felt far heavier than it should have. She was barely able to find her breath as the terrible sight stared back up at her. Blood stained her hooves in copious amounts, and more was joining it with every passing second as she tried in vain to staunch the crimson flow.
Please, no. Say something, stay with me. Look at me, please.
But there was no response. The world around her began to fade away, leaving nothing but the sound of her despairing wails and the blood on her hooves to keep her company. Somewhere far off in the distance, a crack of thunder rolled across the world.
Miss Scarlet?
Scarlet Frost opened her amethyst-colored eyes with a sharp intake of breath, reality snapping back to her the moment the voice reached her ears. Taking a deep breath, she swept her eyes over her environment to ground herself back in the here and now. She was laying down in the grass in an open courtyard, surrounded by the white stone walls of the academy. The distant sound of ponies going about their days in the city could just be heard over the high walls, and a few students could be seen trotting by with their friends, enjoying their lunch break. Sunlight streamed in from overhead, the angle and colors suggesting a mid to late afternoon hour. Taking one more deep breath, Scarlet finally turned to look at the pony who had addressed her. It was a young unicorn stallion, no more than a first-year student at the academy. He had a beige-colored coat with a dark brown mane and tail, each one bound neatly in a ponytail. His orange eyes were wide open, glued onto hers.
Miss Scarlet, are you feeling quite well?
She nodded, wiping an ice-blue hoof over her face.
Yes, I'm fine. My apologies. Did you need something, student?
She asked, affixing him with a stern look. The student did not seem convinced by her statement, but nevertheless chose not to question it.
Yes, I did. I'm doing a research report on the Fall, and I was wondering if you could answer a few questions for me on the matter.
He explained, his voice hitching for just a moment as he began.
Seeing as you've been studying it rather excessively yourself, as I understand. The Fall?
Scarlet echoed, raising an eyebrow in curiosity.
I suppose I can answer a few questions. Come with me.
Confused, the student fell into step beside her as she strode past him for the ornate and well-polished wooden door. The door took them into her place of work, the Swan Run Academy Library. The walls were, much like the rest of the academy, made up of smooth white stone, inlaid with various abstract patterns, most notably of a six-pointed starburst. Tall, translucent green windows lined the walls, letting in rays of pale light to illuminate everything. Bookcases were set up against the walls, each one packed with thick tomes of all shapes, sizes, ages, and subject matters, while a large area in the center was devoted to various seating arrangements, where a few students could be seen with their muzzles buried in pages. Far to the right side of the room, curving staircases made of a fine, dark-colored wood ascended to a second floor that stood suspended over the first, where yet more bookcases could be seen.
What do you know of the fall?
Scarlet suddenly inquired, moving for the stairs. The student jumped at the sound of her voice and scrambled to keep up with her brisk pace.
I know that it's a period of history that marked the end of Old Equestrian, that it happened many centuries ago,
he told her, his brow furrowing in thought.
But specific details are hard to come by. Unsurprising. Archaeologists and historians are still finding scraps and remnants from the fall, much of which is mangled and destroyed beyond being helpful.
Scarlet recalled, humming quietly. They ascended the steps and came onto the second level. Her eyes became affixed to a specific section further back, a few books already in mind.
What we do know was largely passed down by word of mouth and the unreliable scribblings of scattered survivors. I see. But what exactly happened back then? Do we have any ideas whatsoever? A few.
Scarlet nodded before turning down into one of the rows of shelves.
But again, most of what we know of that era is largely speculative. Only a few things are known for certain. Such as? I'm not here to pass your tests for you.
Scarlet shot back with a small smirk on her face. The student winced and shied back under her eyes, prompting her to give a good-natured chuckle.
But I can tell you one thing.
The student looked back up at her, still looking sheepish.
Yes? I'm listening.
Scarlet's smile faded as she pulled the knowledge up from the depths of her memory, and she was barely able to keep a bitter scowl from appearing on her face.
The collapse of old Equestria, the fall, was not an incident that happened out of nowhere. No. Old Equestria fell into ruin because of a race known as the Changelings. They spread across our old home in a storm of fire, blood, and death. Everything in their wake was rent and torn asunder. Changelings. Where have I...
he mumbled, a hoof flying up to rub at his chin in thought. Suddenly, his eyes widened, and he stared at Scarlet in shock.
Oh, by the five, I'm so sorry. Stop!
Scarlet cut him off immediately, her eyes narrowing and her nostrils flaring.
Do not say another word. I do not need to hear one more damned utterance of sympathy, and especially not from a student. Do I make myself clear?
The student bowed his head and took a step back.
Yes, Scarlet, crystal clear,
he stammered. She glared at him a moment longer, before turning away with a huff of annoyance. Her agitation did not last long, however, as it was soon replaced with guilt. Scarlet heaved a sigh and shook her head before flashing him an apologetic glance.
Forgive me. It was unkind of me to speak to you like that,
she said quietly before her horn sparked to life with purple magic. 3 books lit up with an identical glow before floating through the air towards the student.
These books, when read in order from shortest to longest, are the most useful for gaining an understanding of the fall.
The student looked up at the books. Reluctantly, he took them in his own magical grasp, holding them close to his sides.
Very well. Thank you for your time, Miss Scarlet. I'll take my leave,
he muttered before turning and trotting away, his footsteps echoing on the hardwood floor. Scarlet watched him go, then turned to smack her forehead into the bookcase in front of her.
Stupid!
she chastised herself internally. Oh, this was going to be a long day. She just knew it. The sun was starting to get lower on the horizon, slowly turning a shade of yellow over the previous pristine white. Clouds were beginning to roll in, and Scarlet was able to recognize that a storm was on the way. She grimaced at the thought of walking home through rain and high winds, and adjusted herself in her seat. She was currently at a table next to one of the windows on the first floor of the library, a few books scattered before her. There were no other students currently in the library, and the only other pony was the head librarian, who Scarlet could just hear faintly shuffling about somewhere among the shelves behind the counter. She was about to return to reading the book in front of her when one of the library doors swung open with a heavy thunk and loud creak. A dark-colored Pegasus stallion with a graying mane stepped inside. He adjusted his glasses and scanned the room before his eyes found her. "Scarlet Frost?" She sat upright and nodded his way.
Yes? What do you need?
The pony closed the door behind him and strode across the room until he was by her side. "Forgive me for interrupting your work, but Headmare Shine wishes to speak with you in her office." Scarlet raised an eyebrow, confused.
Did she say what for?
She asked, idly closing the book in front of her with her magic. "Not to me, she didn't," the stallion replied, his brow furrowing. "But she asked that you not delay. I assume it must be somewhat serious." Scarlet sighed quietly and rose from her seat.
Very well. I'll go see her.
She relented. The stallion nodded. "Very well. Please, follow me." He led her from the library and out into the halls of the academy proper. The floor in the corridors was made up of dark blue carpets with that same starburst pattern repeating down the middle. Unlit torches sat in evenly spaced wall sconces. Ornate busts of an alicorn with a straight mane were placed at intersections, and Scarlet couldn't help but pause briefly to examine one of them. The alicorn was a mare, her eyes closed with a serene smile on her face. The base of the bust resembled her wings, curving around her neck to shelter it before smoothly transitioning into the pedestal it rested on. A plaque rested just below that, in which the name of the alicorn had been inscribed. Twilight Sparkle, the Princess of Friendship, Goddess of Knowledge, Patron of Students, Teachers, and Mages. Scarlet didn't linger long on the bust, and soon she was being ushered into the office of Headmare Starshine. Much like with the library, the walls were white stone, while the floor was dark hardwood. Paintings and framed certificates sat on the walls in large quantities, each one either displaying a fond memory or one of the many qualifications that Starshine had accumulated. Directly across from the opening, a large, circular stained glass window was set into the wall, overlooking the city beyond. It depicted the very same alicorn whose bust Scarlet had just been examining. Her lavender wings were spread wide open as if an invitation for all to take shelter under them, while a grand library stretched out behind her. Coiled protectively around her was a large dragon with purple scales and a green underbelly, emerald flames licking at the edges of his maw.
Scarlet, there you are.
Starshine's voice drew Scarlet's attention away from the window and to the center of the room. Shine was an elderly mare with a cream-colored coat and a mane and tail that had long since lost their color. She was seated behind her desk, her aging hooves pressed together on the surface, her sky-blue eyes shining with nothing but kindness.
Please, come in.
Scarlet closed the door behind her and stepped forward, giving her superior a respectful nod.
Headmare Shine, you asked to see me?
I did.
Shine nodded along, her smile never wavering.
How has your first day back to work been?
It's been as well as I could expect.
Scarlet replied, her eyes wandering the room again.
I had a student come to me with questions about the fall earlier, which I was not expecting. But in all, I'm feeling better now that I have something to occupy my time.
Shine nodded again, her smile starting to become strained.
Yes, I heard about the student.
Word got back to me that you snapped at him when he went to give you his sympathies.
Scarlet's head sharply turned back to Shine, her eyes wide.
How did...
She went to demand before catching herself. She closed her eyes and took a deep breath before continuing in a more respectful and level voice.
Ma'am, I assure you I am well enough to work.
Scarlet.
Shine replied with nothing but doubt in her voice, her smile fading away.
I'm sure you think so, but I'm not so sure of that myself.
With all due respect, I do not need more time off if that's what you are about to suggest.
Scarlet stated, barely able to hide her impatience.
I've had more than enough of that.
I understand.
Shine replied soothingly. She rose from her seat and slowly trotted around towards Scarlet with a warm smile.
But I also understand that after what you went through, 3 months may not be enough time.
I'm fine.
Shine studied her for a good long while. Scarlet was not able to maintain her stern expression under the kind old mare's gaze, and looked away with her ears drooping. The response seemed to be what Shine was looking for, as her smile grew. She placed a hoof on Scarlet's shoulder to get her attention.
Well, maybe you are, Scarlet. But maybe you should go home early all the same.
Scarlet blinked.
Ma'am, you've been away for a few months, Scarlet, with little and less to fill your time.
Shine elaborated before gently pushing the mare for the door.
Coming back to a full day of work may not be the best thing for you right now. Go home early, relax, get your head together, and we'll see how you're feeling when you come in tomorrow.
Scarlet allowed herself to be ushered out before turning back to Shine, about ready to object and request that she work as long as normal. However, the firm look she suddenly received from the older mare cowed her into submission. Repressing a sigh, Scarlet gave a slow nod.
Very well, Shine. I will speak with you tomorrow.
Starshine beamed upon hearing that.
I look forward to it. Farewell.
And with that, the door closed in Scarlet's face, leaving her to her own devices. Swan Run. Scarlet's home. Resting at the top of a sheer cliff along the western coastline of New Equestria, its buildings were made of smoothly cut white stones harvested from the cliffside. Meanwhile, down on the beach, the harbor was alive with activity. Sailors of all races meandered along the various waterside inns and taverns, talking loudly amongst themselves as they wrapped up their work for the evening. In the core of the city stood the Pearl Keep, a towering castle that served as the central bastion in the event of a siege. The landmark presided high over the rest of Swan Run, filling the inhabitants with comfort and a sense of security. Aiding this were the regular patrols of the city watch, keeping the peace. It was all very familiar to Scarlet, which is why she chose to ignore most of it. She was currently standing on an overlook along the edge of the cliffs, gazing off to the west at the approaching storm clouds. She could faintly see a few flickers of lightning and electricity amid that looming darkness, and the rumble of thunder could just be heard from this distance. A few foals went scampering by, happily yelling at one another and waving around toy swords and their ill-practiced magic auras. Scarlet couldn't help but turn to look and watch them play their game of soldier.
I got you now, evil griffin.
one of the foals, a colt, declared as he lightly smacked his playmate, a filly, over the head with his sword.
You are dead now.
The filly played along, dramatically flopping over onto her back and thrusting her hooves towards the sky.
No! Curse you, pony!
She cried out, before both of them burst into fits of giggles. Scarlet grimaced at the sight and looked away. She had half a mind to spin around and scold them for daring to misrepresent the war like that, to dare depict the Griffins as villains when most of them were just like the ponies they were fighting. She held her tongue, though, and heaved a heavy sigh.
They weren't there like I was.
She told herself in the privacy of her own mind.
Let them have their fun.
The foals played for a few minutes longer before the voice of their mother called out to them. Their game came to an end, and they went galloping away, leaving Scarlet alone on the overlook. She remained there for a short while longer, before turning away and starting to trot down one of the many cobblestone roads of her home. The light gradually grew dim as she meandered through the familiar streets, the sun ready to retire for the evening until it was time for the morning. Just as it was becoming difficult to see, however, the streets were suddenly bathed in purple light. Scarlet paused and glanced over at one of the sources, finding a metal lamppost that curved over the street with a bundle of crystals glowing on the end. Scarlet tore her eyes away from the invention of arcane engineering and continued on her way. The clouds were starting to roll over the city when, at long last, she came to her home. It was a modest, two-story building that shared the same architectural style as the rest of the city. Smooth, straight white stone walls, domed dark stone roof, simple glass windows fit into the sides. Silently and begrudgingly thankful to be back home, Scarlet pushed open the door and slid inside just as the first drops of rain began to fall on the world. She lingered by the door for a moment before looking into the entrance of her home. The front room was small and modest. Directly across from her was a flight of stairs that would lead to the bedrooms. To her left was a wooden door that would lead to her personal study, while to her right was an archway that led to her kitchen, pantry, and dining room. The floor was, in sharp contrast to the walls, made of wooden planks that creaked softly under her weight. Scarlet stood there for some time, unsure of what to do. Normally, she would still be at the academy, shelving books and answering the questions of curious students of history. But she had been given the order to come home early, all because her co-worker saw fit to extend excessive sympathy and concern towards her. Stifling a groan, Scarlet turned and departed for her study. She could fill the time with a book or something, she imagined. Hours passed, and the world outside faded into darkness. The rain had gotten heavier, now pummeling the windows with reckless abandon. The only light in the home of Scarlet Frost was, at present, a single candle on the desk of her study, allowing the seated unicorn to comfortably read the pages of her chosen book. Time passed her by, the hours bleeding together. She briefly pondered descending into her cellar to get some wine to ease the time, when a flash of light came in through the window. Curious, she glanced outside and began to count in her head.
1, 2.
The deafening boom of thunder interrupted her thoughts, briefly making her jump in her skin. She laughed at her own foolishness before returning her eyes to her book. She didn't get to keep reading, though, as something else suddenly drew her attention. A muffled squeak reached her ears from below the floor, followed by a loud crash. Immediately, Scarlet was on her hooves, her horn lighting up with magic.
What in the world?
She asked herself, her eyes scanning the darkness beyond the light of her candle. Silence was her answer, and an uneasy feeling began to crawl up her spine. Swallowing heavily, Scarlet pushed more power into her horn, creating a pale light on its tip to guide her way. She stepped out of her study, ears perked up and listening carefully. The white noise of the rain only seemed to get louder, the only other sounds being Scarlet's steadied breathing and her hooves gently scraping across the wooden floor. The noise had come from below, she recalled, meaning it must have come from her cellar. With the uneasy feeling in her chest growing, and a healthy dose of curiosity rising to join it, she passed through her kitchen and dining room to slip into her pantry. Once she was inside, she cast her light about for any signs of a disturbance. Nothing stood out to her right away. The shelves of non-perishable foodstuffs were utterly untouched from how she had left them, meaning that whatever had caused that crash had not come through here at any point. Her eyes fell to the corner by the entrance, where an old trapdoor waited for her. She pried it open with her magic, grimacing internally at the deep creak given off by the aging wood and the metal hinges. A wave of stale air wafted up to meet her, swimming up into her nostrils and flooding them with the smell of wood and perhaps a little bit of mold. She'd need to tidy up down there at some point, she decided. Putting aside any thoughts of cleaning for the moment and channeling a little more power into her light, Scarlet carefully descended the steps. The sounds of the rain assaulting her home became almost inaudible, becoming little more than a low and ominous rumble in the depths of her ears. The steps creaked loudly in protest under her weight, accompanied by the quiet hum of her magic. The cellar was less than pleasant to look at, but then again, she figured, it didn't need to be. It was a small and cramped space with a low ceiling and an old wooden floor that creaked even worse than the boards upstairs. Along the walls, a few shelves with odds and ends that had no other place in the home could be seen. Below them, racks loaded with bottles of wine were neatly arranged. Kegs of ale hugged the corners where the racks were absent. A few rats scattered away from the glow of her magic, squeaking in a panic and making her cringe. She would need to deal with them, too, when she started cleaning up later.